Material possessions do not determine your worth. See, this is an important reminder for you to have, because sometimes we get so caught up with chasing after the finer things in life that we forget what most of these finer things are. And they're typically just objects. Now, there's nothing wrong with desiring a nice home or desiring a nice car, because I'm human. I get it, right? We have wants and we have desires. And as humans, we're always chasing after happiness, right? And going after that happiness, right? Part of it is wanting to experience all that life has to offer, right? And I understand humans will desire wanting to upgrade their lifestyle and live comfortably, right? I totally get it. However, the trap that so many people fall into is when they begin to associate these material objects and these possessions with their self-worth. And I'm here to tell you, if you have the tendency to do the same, it will serve as your downfall, because that is an incorrect line of thinking. That isn't a faulty belief to have. And the reason for it is because you are worthy the moment you are born. The fact that you are alive, breathing, and existing means that you are worthy, and you have always been worthy, right? There are people who incorrectly associate material possessions with worth, right? And they think that if someone has all of these luxurious items and all these great things, that means that they are worthy or more worthy than people who do not. And that is simply not true. Each and every person, the fact that they're born means that they're worthy, and they have been worthy since then. And the fact that they're breathing, existing, means that they're worthy, and their worth should never be questioned. And the reason for it is because you are a creator. That means you are abundant. Abundance is your birthright, right? And you, as a creator, you're a creator because you were given a mind, and with this mind you can think any thought. You have infinite creativity and you have an infinite imagination. You can make anything in your mind, which means you can create anything, because creation happens from the inside out. Creation, you take your ideas, your thoughts, your personality, your creativity, and usually is when you're bringing forward something that previously didn't exist into the physical world. That's why you might hear the saying that thoughts are things, or thoughts become things. That is true, right? Because if you look around at your surroundings, everything that you see, with the exception of nature, began in the mind of man. It was once an idea. It began as a thought, right? So the world that we live in today, and the world that we've always lived in, is largely the result of human imagination. So the world that we see is just the creations of all other people, right? And so these material objects that people put on a high pedestal are just ideas and creations of other people. So how could it be that if we created these material objects, how could these things ever be worth more than us? It is not possible. It can't, right? And it's the same with money. Money, we as humans, we created money. It was our ideas, our invention, our creation. So you can basically compile all the money that's ever existed in all throughout history, and all that will ever exist in the future, and you could put it in a mountain, right? And you can stand right next to it, and it still will never be worth more than you. It can never define your worth. And that is because you are a creator, right? And all of these objects, all of these other things, these are merely creations, right? How can creations ever be worth more than the creators? It's just not possible, because you as a creator, you can continue creating infinitely. So if you can create infinitely, that means you can provide infinite value to other people, which means you can create infinite wealth. That is why you were born rich. And if you haven't experienced physical wealth in your life, it is likely because you were not aware of your power, right? And you were not likely aware of your abilities to be able to do that. And you were likely probably not serving other people, providing value to other people, right? But all of these material objects and material possessions are just objects, and they came from us. So how could they ever be worth more than us? And how could they ever define our worth? They cannot. It is not possible. And so that's why people fall into the trap of associating these objects with their own wealth, with their own worth. And think about how problematic that line of thinking actually is. Because if someone associated their self-worth with these material possessions, What do you think is going to happen to that person the moment they lose all of their possession, or the moment they go broke and lose everything? They will begin to view themselves as worthless because they no longer have the things that made them feel worthy. And if you are able to separate yourself from that, then it won't matter what you own, because you will still believe in your worthiness, and you will believe that even if you've lost it all, you could still gain it back, because you are worthy and you are capable. You are worthy of it all in this lifetime. You see, and I'm also going to share another example with you. And this came from a content creator that I saw many months ago, how this person shared a story about how earlier on in their life, they bought a Porsche. And they bought the Porsche because the Porsche was their dream car, and that dream car served in their eyes as a symbol of success. That's the car that they wanted, and they believed the moment they got that car that it was going to mean that they've succeeded. And they would drive around town and everyone would know them as the Porsche guy, right? The problem with that is that because this person was so attached to the car that they drove it around, right? But they were also nervous to drive it at the same time, because they were afraid that the car would get scratched or damaged, right? And they wouldn't know how to react if their car ever got, if their dream car, their baby, right, ever got damaged or ever got, messed up, right? Or ever experienced any issues, right? They wouldn't know how to react. And the problem with that as well is that that car became their identity. If they're known as a Porsche guy, then they have to always drive around the Porsche or drive something better, because they're now known as a Porsche guy. They're seen as the guy who's successful, this guy who's wealthy, who's worthy, who's valuable. And so if they're known as the Porsche guy, they can't ever downgrade, because then their reputation is on the line. They have to either drive the Porsche or upgrade. And then you can see how it becomes a competition of trying to keep up with the Joneses, right? Like, it'll be hard for you to separate your own identity from the objects, because so many people, their identity is the objects. That's why there's some folks who, when they have money, right, they have to continue flexing and have to continue putting on this persona, this image, because that's what they've created, and that is what they associate their identity with. And if they no longer have these things, it's almost like they lose themselves and they lose their identity, because they no longer have these material objects and these possessions, right? You need to remember, I understand that we're chasing after these dreams of wanting these nice things, but you need to make sure that when you get these things, right, you get them because you want them, not because you need them, right? The people who get certain things, these nice things, these finer, luxurious things, people who get them because they need them are the people that fall into the trap and typically, experience financial struggle, or, just they face more challenges in life because they associate their identity with these objects. They associate their worth with these objects. And if they no longer have these objects, they feel torn apart and conflicted. If you buy these items when you want them, right, then you will be okay with, if anything were to happen to these objects, right, then you will still be okay with it, and you'll still be able to make peace. There won't be any sort of attachment there, right? Because you just got them when you got these objects and these possessions when you could comfortably afford them, and when you want them, not because you need them, right? And because you got them because you wanted them and not because you needed them, then if anything were to ever happen to the material possessions, you will be unaffected by it, or not as affected as someone where their identity or their worth is contingent upon these material objects. You see, that is the mentality that I want you to have, that understand that these material objects are nice, but they're not the end all be all. That one day you'll get them and you'll have these things, but you'll get them when you want them and not because you need them. Because if you need them, then there's that level of attachment that is going to be there, and that will serve as your downfall. Because you need to remember that these are just objects. These objects should not take over your life. These objects should not define you and who you are and your worth, because your worth is infinite. Your worth is unlimited, because you can create infinitely. So you can provide unlimited value and create unlimited wealth in this world. These material objects can't do that. And once again, these objects are not worth more than you, because they are creations that came from the creators, which is us, came from us as people. So they can never be worth more than us. You can line up You can pile all the money in a mountain. You can put all the expensive cars. You can line them up. You can all the homes, right? You can add up the entire net worth of all the homes, and that will still never be worth more than you, because you have been worthy the moment you were born, and you are abundant, and your value and your worth is going to be forever infinite and unlimited. Do not fall into the trap of associating your self-worth to material possessions. You will always be worth more than that. It's not even an even playing field. It will never be an even playing field. It will never even be close, right? Don't fall into a trap. You can create infinitely. You can provide value infinitely, which can create infinite wealth in this world. You need to remember who you are as a creator. I think that the people who fall into the trap of having to always flex or having to wear designer clothes to make themselves feel good or make themselves feel better, I think people do that because they themselves don't value themselves, or they don't have anything of value, of true value, to provide to the world. And so they mask it behind all of these luxurious items because they just want to look the part rather than be the part. I promise you, if you choose to be the part, then you will eventually have the option to look the part if you so choose, right? Because if you be the part, if you operate as someone that's valuable and worthy, then you'll be providing value to so many people. You'll be serving so many people. You'll be delivering happiness to so many people, and money will flow to you automatically and effortlessly. And then you'll be able to afford all the things, all the nice things you could ever want. If you want these things, you'll be able to afford them, right? Without even batting an eye, without even blinking, without even batting an eye, right? You'll be able to do that. And that is when you uncover and discover your own worth and accept that you are worthy and operate from that. Don't let these material objects have you believe that that's going to determine your worth, right? Because even if you don't have these material objects, that doesn't mean you're worth less than people who have them, because you can eventually create these things in your life, and you can eventually put yourself in a position to have these things. And if you don't want these things, then cool, you don't want these things, you don't need these things, right? But just make sure you are aware that you do not fall into the trap of associating these possessions with your worth, because you can't. It doesn't even come close to who you are, right? It's just you remembering who you are and who you've been this entire time, right? As a creator, right? It's me reminding you of who you are so that you can navigate this life the right way. And the finer things in life, right? That you can get them when you want them, not when you need them. So then if you get them when you want them, then there's no emotional attachment to them. That they can, just as energy flows, right? They can enter and exit your life freely, and you'll be at peace, because these things are nothing more than just objects. So that rest of the video. Enjoy the video. Leave a like and subscribe as we're on the road to a million subscriber, guys. So once again, it's Joel, and I'm out. I'll see you guys for the next video.